Hello and welcome back. How are we doing? Yay. I'm really excited about this panel. I love it when your friends really take it to the next level. And so it's really a huge honor for me to have this panel here. I want to encourage you to please, again, I know I sound like a broken record. Please tweet along. We have a hashtag. What is it? Thank you very much. You're awesome. Also, after the session, just so you know as well, DocBC is here, and they're doing a bit of a membership drive. I think there's some initiatives for you. So drop in, meet with them. It's always great to have a team behind you, and they're an amazing organization. Thanks so much. And without any further ado, the wonderful Leah Mallen.
Thanks, Siobhan. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Leah Mallen. I'm a local producer, and I'm head of development currently at Reunion Pictures. And I'm very pleased to be sitting up here with two amazing filmmakers, incredibly successful in their own right, and incredibly talented. And I've had the pleasure of rewatching and watching their films in preparation for this panel, so I'm really excited to be here and discussing the business of docs with you. So to my left is Nimisha Mukerji, who, if you're not familiar with it, you should rush out and see this film. Her debut feature was a film called 65 Red Roses, and it was commissioned by CBC's Passionate Eye. It's a beautiful, beautiful film. And it was one of the first official selections for Oprah Winfrey's documentary club on OWN. It was distributed by PBS International, Roku in the US, and Hello Cool World in Canada, and it was acquired by over a dozen countries, as well as Netflix, iTunes, Hulu, and the NFB. So her second feature, another incredible film, Blood Relative, was produced for Knowledge Network and screened in competition at Hot Docs. Received 3 Canadian Screen Award nominations, including Best Director in a Documentary Program and the Donald Britton Award. And her latest feature, which we're going to get a glimpse of today, which I'm very excited about, is Tempest Storm. And she raised successfully over $45,000 on Kickstarter, which I want to hear all about, and won Best Canadian Pitch at the Hot Docs Forum. The film's being produced by Super Channel. And so we're just going to run, oh, sorry, I didn't list all your other broadcasters, Arte, SWR, and Yes Docu, which is an Israeli broadcaster, with distribution by Mongrel in Canada. So without further ado, we'll just show, I'll let Nimisha set up the clip before we show you Tempest Storm.
Thanks, Leah. So I'm currently been working on a film called Tempest Storm for the last, it's almost 3 years. And so what I brought with me, rather than, a trailer from my previous work, I thought I would bring something that would show the process of trying to create the right pitch reel. And so the pitch reel that I'm about to show, even though we won the forum last year, we still had to go in and shorten it. So this is what we just cut like 4 months ago to continue try to raise funds for the movie. So it's about 3.5 minutes, and this is what we were started to continue to take to broadcasters in the US and the UK.
And is this what you used on Kickstarter?
No, so this has been an evolution. So this is the final reincarnation of the pitch reel.
Okay. She's, if you still want to donate money, she'll probably take your cash.
Tempest Storm is the biggest attraction today. So big, we had to use widescreen to film Teaserama.
Marilyn Monroe, Bridget Bardot, Raquel Welch, Tempest Storm. She had a relationship with Elvis Presley, JFK, Nat King Cole.
She packed houses around America for decades.
She was a class act, and when she took her clothes off, it was almost artistic.
That self-confidence, that attitude, you can respect the fact that just because she moved forward in years does not mean that she let her dreams go.
A reporter asked me, "What do you think about on stage?" I said, "Well, I feel just like Muhammad Ali. I'm the greatest, and I'm still the greatest."
with my rope and my saddle and my horse and my gun.
Herb Jeffers was a big name singer with Duke Ellington's band. It was the first time I'd really experienced real love.
She was one of those people who spoke out about civil rights, who personally invested herself in an interracial marriage that really damaged her career.
You have a beautiful outfit. My daughter and I.
When she left Herb and the daughter, she kind of just left.
My career was #1. I know it was wrong, what I did. And to this day, I feel bad about it. I'm going to Los Angeles to see my ex-husband, Herb Jeffers, who's 102. I would really be upset if I didn't go see him, and he passed away. Hello, dear. How are you, dear? Wow. It's so great to see you. Oh, my God. We haven't seen each other for a long time. We're going to live forever, you know that. That's my child's father.
A lot of people want to live alone, but they don't want to die alone. I hope Tempest, I hope she's keeping in touch with her daughter.
I usually get her answering machine.
Hello?
And I will introduce our other guest. So Brent Hodge started his career working at the CBC, where he directed Radio 3's online show R3 TV, and soon moved into directing, producing TV documentaries, including the Leo Award-nominated What Happens Next, the Dan Mangan documentary. And in 2014, he directed, I'm sure, a film you've heard of, A Brony Tale. And again, I will also highly encourage anyone who hasn't seen this film to go out and watch it. It's about middle-aged men who like My Little Pony. The film premiered at the 2014 Tribeca Film Festival, was picked up by exec producer and distributor Morgan Spurlock. The film went on to do a theatrical run in over 30 cities in North America, digital distribution through Netflix, Google Play, iTunes, and more, and he won the Las Vegas Film Festival Best Doc category and is a 2014 Leo Award recipient. From the success of A Brony Tale, he was then asked to direct the Chris Farley documentary, I Am Chris Farley, with Spike TV and Network Entertainment. And it looks back at the SNL comedian's life and the legacy he left behind. It just had a theatrical run here in Vancouver, right? And now Hodge and Spurlock have also teamed up again for a digital series entitled Morgan Spurlock's Consider the Source, an 8-episode series for Disney Maker Studios, which looks at everyday products we consume and traces their stories right back to the source, which he's in the midst of shooting right now. So we're very lucky that he's popped up to Vancouver to join us for that. So, and in 2014, he was also named one of BC's top 30 under 30 entrepreneurs in BC Business Magazine. So welcome, and we're gonna run 2 clips. I think it was important to talk about A Brony Tale, so I want it, for the benefit of anyone who hasn't seen it yet, to see some of that. And we'll also get a glimpse at I Am Chris Farley, so you can run those clips.
You ain't a man unless you're watching My Little Pony, son.
I'm Ashley Ball, and I am the voice actor in Vancouver. I do the voices of Applejack and Rainbow Dash on the new My Little Pony series.
I happen to be the fastest Pegasus in the sky. It's because I'm awesome.
I've just been invited to go to the 2012 BronyCon in New York City.
The pervert alarm for sure went off in my head when I first heard about it.
Bronies are these young adults. They're looking for connections with other people. They need to find something to sort of give them meaning.
So this is definitely blowing me away.
Forget you, I can eat all these apples.
I am a brony. I'm a brony.
All they are people who like a cartoon show. That's it.
I tried myself to figure out why I love the show so much, and honestly, I can't come up with a good answer.
Not about My Little Pony, it's about friendship is magic.
What is that, a puppy, a kitten, and like one guy in the back goes, it's a pony. And I said, I want that guy to do my tattoo.
It's a really important part of a lot of these people's lives. So yeah, as long as like My Little Ponies exist, there will be bronies.
How can we get back on the right track?
Anytime you get to talk about Chris Farley is a good day, man.
Funniest guy ever. It was nuts. When I walked through Chicago with him, oh my God, there's Chris Farley, there's Chris Farley, there's Chris Farley.
Everybody cries for this, right?
Don't give up. Natural ability. It was just natural.
I haven't had sex with a woman.
I don't know how that works.
Make like an egg and beat it.
And he was infectious, and he was kind, and he was a puppy dog.
He was this boy that wanted to do good, but then there was this other side of him. So his whole life was this constant battle.
Success in show business does not always create the best version of people.
And also thinking that you have the physical capacity to handle it. Was, you may think that you can handle it.
It's not gonna change me. I'm gonna do the same old Chris.
Yeah.
Nothing's gonna happen.
It's a tough thing to deal with that kind of fame when you're that famous. And if it happens fast, it's almost lethal.
You can't walk around being funny all the time. You have to be yourself sometimes, and you have to be alone sometimes.
But you don't die at 33, it doesn't happen.
It comes up in something in my mind every day. And I think it will forever.
The poor world only got to see this part of the iceberg that is Chris.
It may not be Ken doll, but it comes together and it's extremely attractive.
This is the physicality. You saw his quality as an actor there.
You know, when everybody's deciding who's the funniest, you go, Farley was the funniest.
Our generation was into him.
And Chris just stops and he turns to me right at the edge of the curtain and goes, this is what we're gonna do for the rest of our lives.
There's a category of people that I work with that are infuriatingly talented. As long as they're in this world, I think you always recognize whatever it is when you see it. You're always drawn to that.
For showing that. So congratulations to you both. Those amazing bodies of work. So, you know, this panel is called The Business of Docs, and yet I am sitting here next to directors who are primarily concerned with the creative side of the filmmaking, but I think more so than any other aspects of the industry, I think as a director and you know, care to comment or disagree, but you have to be extremely involved in the business making side of things. So I did want to ask you both what your experience has been, you know, getting involved on the side of financing of, you know, you both carry producer titles in often on your films. So how does that integrate with your work as directors?
Yeah, I think well, the one thing is the producer title is so funny. Like when you're a director, you direct a movie, everyone knows what you're doing, but there's so many different producers on films. So they always have different kind of jobs, and you never really know what some of them do. So when you're hiring a producer, you're like, well, what did you actually do on the movie? You tell them, like, to give me go through it. But I think like if we're gonna focus on two films, these two films were very, very different, but kind of had the same life, both the theatrical did festivals and did VOD, and one was made for $12,000, one was made for $1.2 million.
Wow.
But yeah, they still had a very similar life. So in terms of budgeting, in terms of the actual business of it, yeah, we could dive right in. Like they're very different.
Mm-hmm. So when you say $12,000, because it was interesting, you and I had spoken about that, and I was like, there's no way this doc was $12,000, which maybe I mean, obviously you were dealing with a highly known brand, you're dealing with archival footage, the music, you know, I think you had a personal relationship with Ashley, which was great, and that was how the subject of the film came to you.
Yeah.
But maybe you can just sort of speak to how you overcame, because obviously the production value is amazing, and you know how you manage that with such a low budget.
Well, I think it's if you have a great idea, people will jump on board. They might take a pay cut as well. That helped, but that didn't really help with Farley. I guess the big thing is the rights to stuff, and I think Rachel's here. My lawyer / producer is amazing because we got Hasbro for like. Hasbro owns My Little Pony, and that was great getting those clips for very, very little, actually nothing. And that's because of Ashley and the connection that Ashley had. Versus Farley, where everything cost a lot of money. SNL, I think it's $10,000 for 20 seconds. That's a lot of money to put in clips of that.
Yeah.
And then if you want it for trailers and you want it for things, and it's just harder. Like interviewing a brony in his. Is there any bronies in the room? No. Okay. They pop up, man. They're everywhere. I love them. But
after watching the movie, I've become a brony. Actually.
Yeah. No, the women brony are called Pegasisters.
Oh yeah.
It's a great name. I love that. I always love that. Like interviewing a brony in their basement is a lot easier and a lot cheaper than Mike Myers or David Spade. There's a lot more work. Or going to SNL to interview Lorne Michaels, you have to put a lot more resources behind that. It's a lot more money. And it's the difference between shooting, directing, editing, doing it all yourself versus having a team and being able to focus on just directing. In this case, there were a lot of producers that were also focusing on making sure that budget works and there's clients and everything. So they're like, it's funny though, this is what I found so interesting is like, for such a bigger price, you still kind of have the same life, right? You still go to theaters and you still go to TV and you do it the same way as you would with a film that doesn't cost as much.
So with A Brony Tale, was it? I mean, who was on the team? Was it you and a producer, or?
Yeah, I gotta think. It was a couple years ago. So Brony Tale started with just me. It was me and a camera and Ashley, and then I just started traveling and finding all these bronies, and then people started coming on, and Rachel came on, and then we started getting a team. But I edited it, so the team stayed really small until we approached Morgan Spurlock, and then he came on as exec producer and then distributed it.
And was that partway through the process, or you'd finished the film and played at festivals already?
Oh no, it was before this. We kind of had what we showed for Tempest. It was like a pitch package. We had like a 1-minute version and then a 10-minute. I was pretty close to being finished. I think I might have been finished. I think it was like down. I just hadn't done a full mix, or it was close.
And how did you identify Morgan Spurlock's company as a place that you wanted to take the film?
We knew right away that we wanted to go there, and then we tried to get a hold of them. It's hard to get a hold of these people. You can't just call them up.
I think I've tried to book him for some panels.
Have you?
I
Yeah.
found that same thing.
Yeah, but he, through a friend who knew him and through the industry, and we finally got it to him, and he actually watched it. It's kind of a dream come true. Like really, it's what you dream of. You think of a movie, you think he'd be great for it, you somehow get it to him, and then he's just such an amazing dude who watched it and then actually called me. And I thought it was. I remember it was. I thought it was my friends playing a trick on me because I said I wanted it to go with this guy. So it's magical. I still can't believe that happened. So that's how it got to him. And then once he gets to a guy like Morgan Spurlock, or if you already have like Farley, once you have a name like that and have the life rights, people will jump on board. Like it's a film, and Morgan's gonna call Tribeca and make sure we get into a good festival, and he has connections. He's gonna make sure that we got a theater deal. He's going to make sure we got a Netflix deal. He's going to do all this. But you are still going to be the person that cares the most about your movie, and you're still going to be the person that works just as hard. So that's, I think, where the producing comes in as well, and the business part of it is he's not there just to do it all for you. Spike TV or these people, they're not there just to do it for you. You have to work really hard still and know the business and understand that there's a lot to it. There's a lot of work still. It isn't just handed to you.
Well, and if we can talk about Tempest Storm that way, because I know you've been extremely involved in all of the aspects of your films, and so maybe you can speak to, has it changed from, you've seen great success with 65 Red Roses and Blood Relative, and I think people know you in the industry now on an international level. Was getting Tempest Storm off the ground easier for you?
I really wish I could say it was. But the truth of the matter is there's a reason I had to do a Kickstarter for my film, because there was nowhere to get development money for the movie. And I knew from 65 Red Roses and Blood Relative that you have to shoot something if you're hoping to show it to a broadcaster. And we did. We started shooting, I think, in March of 2013. And we were shooting with the intent of doing the Kickstarter in September. So it wasn't even about going to a broadcaster at that point. I knew we didn't have enough material for a broadcaster to be interested in the project. And we were still trying to figure out the story. And I think that's kind of one of the hard parts of being a documentary filmmaker and you're a director. And in the position that I was in all of the projects I've worked on, and I was fortunate in my first film I had a co-director and he produced with me, Philip Lyle. So we were sort of in it together. But we were afraid to approach a legitimate producer because we didn't have any money. And we're like, can we really ask someone to come on board when we have no money and do all this work for us for free?
Even though the success of your other films could demonstrate your talent.
Yeah, but I still feel really uncomfortable with, asking someone to come on board when I have no money attached. So I personally feel a responsibility to bring some money to the project before I start to bring other people into the film.
Wow.
Yeah.
Producers, are you hearing that?
Yeah.
That's rare.
I mean, that's just me. And I think Force 4 was the production company behind 65 Red Roses. And that was an amazing experience. But what I didn't understand when I approached, I was pitching, we decided to pitch 65 Red Roses to production companies rather than go to broadcasters because we said, nobody knows our name. Let's just see if we even have a good idea. Let's start pitching it to production companies and see if production companies will bite. Because if they are interested, then likely we can get to a broadcaster. And when we signed with Force 4, and we were really young, we were like 22 or 21, and we had no idea that didn't mean there was going to be money. That they were like, well, now you got to do all the work, find some financing.
And we will own it.
And we will, share ownership with you.
Yeah.
But with that comes free accounting, free legal. That's a bookkeeper. And, I think that was something that when I went on my own for Blood Relative and with Tempest, I think I didn't fully understand that this is a company. Yeah. That I have a legitimate company, even though it's just me.
Yeah.
And that I have to treat
like
it
maybe
like a
the
company.
weight and the success of Force 4 and that that they're bringing that to the table too. There's value in that.
Yeah,
for
so that's what I think I learned, and I don't know, Brent, if you can speak to this, but it's like you have to, like, that's when I realized that I honestly can say I spend about 60% of my time producing and 40% of my time directing because we have to raise the money and you have to be able to make sure that your books make sense, the money makes sense, and that you have receipts for everything. And, by the time, we bring on additional help, you're already pretty far into it. So if you haven't gained control of that stuff. And so I think, for directors, I think that it is very important to be proactive about understanding the financing side of things, at least a little bit, unless you're very lucky like Brent and you have a lawyer who's producing for you.
Thanks, Rachel.
Yeah. Well, and that being said, because you are so involved in the producing side of things and you know that you have to create something that's going to maybe attract investment and financing, to what extent do you really have your audience in mind? Like, are you thinking about how the film's going to be received, or are you more driven by, do you go with, your heart and feel that this is a subject that other people will want to see and you hope the audience will come?
I think there's a combination of both. I think if you're into a film and you like a film, I hope that people are going to want to see it as much as I loved making it. Like I remember when Ashley talked about bronies, I was like, people have to see this. This is phenomenal. Guys who like My Little Pony are emailing you. Like, what? Let's find them. And it just sort of made itself because it was so fun to film it. And I knew it was gonna do well in theaters. I definitely did.
And I wanted to ask a little bit, because we were speaking about it prior to the panel, that, I mean, I think I came to that film with a preconceived notion. I think, even your trailer kind of hints at it, when Ashley says, like, the pervert alarm
pervert
went
alarm,
off, And yeah, so you have this preconceived notion of, like, grown men, like, being in love with My Little Pony and the TV show. But then when you watch, what you did so successfully, I think, was by the end of that film, you love My Little Pony, and you understand why these people love it, and it's not creepy. It's actually really amazing, and I think that sort of twist really was why I think people were drawn to the film.
They're drawn.
Did you come at it with preconceived notions?
Oh yeah. Oh, I thought it was the weirdest thing in the world. Of course, I was like,
Did you know about the fall? Like it's insane, the following.
Well, it kind of got bigger as it happened, and just back to your original question of, as soon as I saw that following getting big, I said, we can sell theaters with this. There's bronies in every city, from Kansas City to Denver to, you go online, you can go like Denver Facebook group for bronies and meet up, and you can start talking to them. And so we knew that, and I approached Spurlock, I remember doing a whole map of the states going, this is how many brony groups there are, and we should try to get into a theater. And so he was like, oh, this is great. We're gonna sell out theaters. And so it was, we knew that there was a niche audience, but we knew there was an audience already. And the same with Farley.
Was there any skepticism on the part of your subjects in a brony tale that you were going to make fun of them? Was that hard
to be honest, I
access?
think Farley was harder because of his life, because of dying from drug overdose and he was very sensitive. People didn't want to talk about that. I think bronies, I got in early enough that they just wanted to be on camera. Like they were, and then Fox News and Howard Stern did all these terrible stuff on the bronies, which made it a little bit more reserved. But I think if people know you're a genuine person and you're coming in and they tell you, like, Bob Saget tells David Spade that we did a good job, and then they tell them, and just start getting people. It's the same that happened with the bronies. Is you should interview a brony DJ in Atlanta. I'm like, a what? Like, there is. He does pony music, and you're like, great. And then he tells you about the next guy, and you gotta see the movie. It's great.
So you gotta see the movie. It's really great. Well, so that's interesting. So you said with I Am Chris Farley that you actually really encountered that, because, and I haven't had the pleasure of seeing the whole film, but one can expect that it's a love letter to Chris Farley and his unbelievable, comedic life and what his legacy was. But obviously there's a litany of great stars that we all want to see talk about it. But how were you able to get that emotional resonance? You can see that you've moved people. People are moved to tears.
Yeah.
And maybe these are people with veneers that don't want to expose that. How do you as a filmmaker sort of penetrate that and get to the source?
Yeah, it's just I think it's just coming at it with that one's hard. It's like I think it's been 18 years. They really wanted to. I don't think anyone has closure on Chris Farley. It's a hard subject. He died tragically, and no one talked about it after. And so it brought up a lot, I think, for these guys. But it was just as hard with a $1.2 million budget to get people to sit down and talk to him. Already going on Spike TV primetime, already having all that, still didn't matter. It doesn't give you access to anything extra.
And you weren't limited in any capacity as to what you were allowed to talk about?
I'd say that the difference between a $12,000 documentary that you make by yourself versus a 1.2 is there's just more people involved in the process of there's more say from others. It's not your money, right? It's like it's somebody else's money, and I think that's the golden rule is if somebody gives you money, it's they have a say on it. It's kind of the way it goes.
Yeah.
Even Kickstarters, like those people, it's the people of the world have the say on the film. It's kind of neat.
Well, and can you speak a little bit to how you came to your subject, Tempest Storm? Because when we were speaking earlier about it, you said that you were approached maybe with a bit of a different film concept, but that you were more attracted to Tempest. So maybe speak to that, and were you thinking about the audience when you sort of approached it from a different point of view?
Yeah, I think I tend to not pick subjects that are easy to sell. So with Tempest, I originally was approached to do a burlesque documentary. And it's funny because there is another film that's being made that is exactly the film that wasn't right for me, which was, a little bit more of a a survey piece where you have a multitude of burlesque older legends, doing interviews about their life. And for me,
And sorry, you were approached with that concept by producers or by a financier, or
no, by a friend who wanted to pursue making the film, and she is the same person that ended up bringing me Tempest. And that project ended up happening with another production company, and they got that film was actually very marketable. They got telefilm support, but our film was, strangely, using the word burlesque. I realized very early on worked against us because there are so many burlesque films. HBO had made a burlesque film 10 years ago, and we kept getting everyone kept saying, no, we're not interested in burlesque. Just like with 65, I was like, we're not interested in a cancer film. And she didn't have cancer, but it didn't make a difference. They were like, we're not interested in like an illness project. So that was actually really great to hear that right at the beginning, because I went, all right, we have to now spin this project in a completely new, original way. So we took out the word burlesque. We don't use it. We use the word exotic dancer. And we really focused the film, the stories about Tempest's life. And so my producing partner, she was doing her PhD in women's sexuality, and she had met Tempest through her research. And so she was telling me about her, and at that point, she had just recorded an album with Jack White from the White Stripes.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, there's something about this woman that makes her relevant today, which is really weird to me. And so, and she lives in Las Vegas, and I was like, I've never been to Vegas. So
so it's travel. That's
yeah,
what makes
I'd just been for a year in Mumbai. I was like, I'm going to go to Las Vegas. And so, we went there and we met with her, and she was really not, she really wasn't keen about doing a documentary on her life, which is what made me interested in her, because I thought this is a very private woman. And that's kind of what made me want to do it. And when she said yes, then it was kind of like no turning back. She was already, 85 years old at that time, and she looked good, but we just wanted to make sure we started as soon as we could.
As soon as possible. Well,
she's 85.
She's 80. She's gonna be 88 in
so,
February.
And her husband was 102.
102.
Oh, that's a big gap.
Yeah.
Big gap.
Right?
No judgment. No judgment.
His last wife was in her 50s.
Wow, God. Can I do a
he's
doc on him, or is he still?
He passed, unfortunately.
Oh, he did.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, that's interesting. So she didn't want a documentary made, and you as a filmmaker saw that as the challenge to go after that. So, and obviously, just in what we saw here, you've managed to win her trust, and she's really opening up and sharing very private moments of her life with you. And your other films, obviously, you gained unbelievable access to places and people that with very sensitive subject matter, where death and illness was a part of their lives, and to have a camera in their face during all of that. How did you manage that as a filmmaker?
That's, what, I wish I could take credit for that. I would say, with Ava, Philip, the co-director, was friends with Ava, which I think is what initially gave her the comfort level to say, yeah, I want to pursue this film. And then the job was then, actually going and making the film and developing your own trust with the subject. And then with Tempest, Caitlin Reguer, who is my partner on the project, she was the one that initially got, Tempest's manager, Harvey. They had a friendship, and he was open to allowing us to even meet with Tempest to talk about the project. And so I think, you have to... You're not doing it alone. You're sort of seeing how there are all these incredible people that are, at the right moment coming to you with something. And if you recognize the potential in it, and for me, I've been really lucky to go along for the ride and then get to actually direct the films. But that initial access is really, really important.
Yeah, it's the same. I would say the same with Farley. Like having Ashley for a Brony Tale was huge. She had a big in with the Bronies, big in with Hasbro. That really helps. We can make a movie. She was a good friend of mine, and that helps relationship-wise too, to work with her as a subject. With Farley, it's all Derek Murray. He's the company that came up there, Network Entertainment. They've done a lot of iconic docs with Spike. So he sort of did secured the deal with Spike, but then also we went right to Kevin Farley, who's his brother, has the estate for Chris. As soon as we got him on board, you can approach these guys like Spade and Myers and all them and say, the Farley family's involved. They're the ones commissioned. They're all over this. And so then they say yes. Then they give you access. If you're just kind of going at it, you got to be really professional. It's a business. Like this panel is about. Like it is a business. You have to run it that way. You have to run every film that way.
Well, and that actually raised a question for me as well, because I see you both shared director credit on your films. Like Derek is co-director of Chris Farley film, and you said Philip with 65 Red Roses. And I think I see that more so than in the scripted world, seeing co-directors. And I just wondered if you could speak to how that works, and is it a battle of egos ever? And how you share those roles and what that experience was.
Yeah, I felt really bad for Derek. I just thought he deserved. No, I'm kidding. He was great. He's amazing.
Is Derek here? No.
Derek is not here. He's an amazing cinematographer and he's an amazing director. And I think it was more the other way around. I think he gave me a really good chance to co-direct because he's so busy with so many docs. So we didn't clash. We really got along. But I've definitely heard people that have clashed co-directing. And I've heard some messy stories. So I think as long as you can get along, I think it's a lot like a band, right? If you can play on your own, but if you can play with a guy and it works well together, then it's beautiful music. But sometimes bands break up, and it's just the way it is. But it worked really well for Farley, and Bronytail was on my own, so I just was by myself. I was lonely the whole time. I had bronies. Friendship is magic. I had bronies.
There you go. Friendship is magic. And with you described that Philip was friends with Eva. And then when you came into the project, how did that sort of come about, and how did you guys share those?
Yeah, I mean, we were really young, so I think that we actually did really well considering we hadn't ever made a film, especially on that scale. And I think, I've looking back on it, I think I was really lucky that, I got the chance to work with Phil at that point because, we were very good friends too. And I think I think what co-directing, at least for me, what it did was it really made me clear about what my vision was for a film. Because, and this is not even alone for co-directing. What you realize is, there's your vision, but you're going to have to explain your vision over and over and over again to, in this case, in 65 with the co-director, but then your broadcasters, the additional producers. There's lots of people that you have to become very good at communicating with about what it is that you want to achieve with your project. And it was really steep learning curve and made tons of mistakes, definitely. But it was a really great experience because at the end of the day we made the film, and I think that was kind of the most important thing. And I would also say that Ava was a collaborator on that project too. Yeah, just like with Tempest, like you're collaborating with the subject, because unlike in narrative film, at any moment this person can say, I don't want to do this anymore. And what are you going to say? Oh, you signed this release form that says you're not getting any money anyways, so you really have to do this? Like, no. So you're constantly having to go back and forth with the person who's on camera to make sure that they actually are comfortable and want to, invest in this project too, right?
Yeah, right. With the new sort of regime of docs that I'm finding, fewer and fewer broadcasters per se, conventional broadcasters are maybe making documentaries, or maybe that's not your experience. Maybe there's new players, but certainly with new platforms, we now have Vimeo on demand, where a lot of filmmakers can just release the films themselves, and we have obviously Netflix and iTunes and all these new players. Does that make it harder to find audiences because it's disjointed, or does it give you more opportunities as filmmakers? Have you noticed a change in since your trajectory?
Yeah, I would say for docs, it's just getting better. It's so reassuring, and I think docs are really popular right now. Like, I think a lot of people watch documentaries because they're on Netflix and they're easier to find. It still doesn't mean that people are going to watch your movie particularly. There's a lot of movies that get made every day. I think it's great. There's a lot of channels and there's a lot of avenues, and yeah, that's the goal with the Bronytail. I just want you to never be able to say where can I watch that. I want you to be like, it's out there. Yeah. You find it. You want from Walmart to Best Buy to it's everywhere. And so that was a huge thing for me. I wanted the world to be able to see it, and you can now. It's great. So I don't know. I think it's only getting better. Truly, I think Netflix. I explained this to you when I saw Ian Brick. I just saw him recently. He runs Netflix. He's one of the guys, one of the heads at Netflix. And I just said, thanks for making docs cool again. You made them cool. They just found ways for people to see them.
I actually remember that being for early adopters of Netflix. It was like, you can actually see really great documentaries. So, gone are the days where we would just wait for one broadcaster to play our film and we'd promote that 1 hour that we were going to get on, and then it would sort of die a quick death and no one would ever hear of it again. So I agree. I think it's more exciting. And did you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I think Brent's right. It's definitely an exciting time for documentaries in terms of the audiences, and if you can get to an audience, or if you can, to have a major American network get behind your film, you're going to get more eyeballs watching it through your broadcast than you could maybe do through a limited theatrical. So it's really exciting to see like there's interest in documentaries. I think the challenge is just, at least within Canada, is that the landscape has shifted, and so you have before you would go to a broadcaster and you develop a relationship with that broadcaster, so you have Knowledge Network here, but what we saw even with 65 Red Roses was that film was commissioned by CBC The Lens, and in the process of making that film the lens got cut. And that was 2 films a year. That's, when you think about it, it's 2 budgets for 2 filmmakers a year that was gone. And so I see a direct connection between, voting and participating in selection and saying that, this is a business.
Thank you for saying that.
Filmmaking is a business, and to pretend that the money doesn't matter and the licenses don't matter, I think that would be a mistake, because what we're seeing with in the United States and with the UK, with the BBC, there's really an investment being made. A cultural investment being made in documentary films. Whereas here, it's so small, the number of broadcaster licenses that you can go after now in Canada. And I think that that's really a shame, because something like 65 Red Roses would not have been made. Blood Relative would not have been made without Knowledge Network. And Tempest right now is being made with Super Channel, which is one of the few broadcasters in Canada doing broadcasting feature documentaries. So I am very indebted to the Canadian broadcast system, but with that said, I think that you have to, everyone's kind of in survival mode, and that's why I did Kickstarter, and I would now, recommend crowdfunding to emerging filmmakers especially, because I think you now have to not only have a great project, you have to show that there is an audience for your project, and that's something that these crowdfunding platforms do. And then at the same time, like Brent said, you have to make partnerships with people, in a lot of cases, high-profile people that are going to get you those connections that you don't necessarily have yourself.
Well, and that brings me to another question about distributors, because how do you target a distributor? What do you look for when you're being approached by a distributor? What are the things that are important to you as filmmakers? When you're looking, because now there's digital distributors, there's theatrical distributors, there's some people who want to take all of the rights for worldwide. So how do you manage all that?
Yeah, that's where it gets complicated. And I think every film is different. I think it really depends on your goal of the movie and where you want it to go and what you want it to do. I know Farley's Thunderbird, which is part of you guys, is with Reunion, part of you guys are a team, and they took Canada, and Spike took the U.S., and Fremantle's taking World. I think Mad Men's taking Australia. You're like, wow, there's a lot of players here. This is pretty intense, and I think it's just in each market, it's also very different on who owns that market, who can hit it. Mad Men took our Australia one for Bronytail, and they'd never really done docs, but they did all the Adult Swim stuff in Australia, and I went, this is such a cool fit. And
were you having to reversion the length of the film for all these different
I've never had to. A lot of people do.
Yeah.
I think we did a 60-minute cut for Farley, and then they actually just played the 90. That's cool, but they do. They like to re-lengthen them and do different things, but I've never had to. Bronytail was lucky. I haven't actually altered it since the cut, and I didn't even get any notes from Spurlock, which is great. I guess that'll never happen again in my life. And I got notes from Spike. I'm like, wait, what are all these? I never got these before. So I think it's different depending on the film, truly. And you'd be surprised. I think everyone here, like Farley is a huge name in the U.S. A harder sell in the UK. Bronies is very hard to sell overseas.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was like it's so crazy to think, but yet we can explain all the numbers and we can show how it did theatrical and did well, and you're like, oh. And then sometimes it's the opposite.
And Nimisha, did you find, because you've taken on both local subject matter and with Blood Relative was a story set in India, was that difficult in terms of financing and looking for like, did that go international? Like, did people in India see that film?
Yeah, so this is like, actually was a lesson in timing. So when we finished Blood Brother, it was the same year as another film called,
Blood Relative.
I just confused Blood Brother with my film, Blood Relative, which just goes to show why it was so complicated. So Blood Brother was, premiered at Sundance, when Awards at Sundance was a huge film. And it was, it was about India, it was about helping kids in India. And then you have my film, Blood Relative, which is also shot in India and did not go to Sundance, but went to Hot Docs at the same time. So it was a really interesting experience because I was like, oh my God, this is terrible. Like, I was like, what am I going to do? But, I think what I did was I went, all right, I just got to promote the hell out of this movie, just do the best that I can. And we got Journeyman Pictures on board from the UK, which was good. But I think, again, if I could, I'm really happy to be working with Journeyman, but I think that and this is what happens when you're a director, I was just really tired and I moved on to the next project. And I think that, with 65, we spent about a year, really festivaling, doing.
Yeah, you were always out with that film.
Yeah.
I saw you so much.
We did so many community screenings. Hello Cooled was amazing. When the OWN thing happened with Oprah, that was amazing. It gave it a
how
whole
did
other
that?
life.
So Oprah saw the film, and then she brought it in, and they played it on OWN Network in the U.S. They got
as part of her documentary club,
right.
and that came out of Hot Docs. So I would say that Hot Docs got us distributors with PBS International and Roku with that sale, and then Journeyman Pictures for Blood Relative came in at Hot Docs as well.
Right.
So it was.
Yeah, that was a question I had about film festivals, but Chris Farley hasn't really gone out to film festivals because
it was a bit of a different. Yeah, it was a bit of a different deal because of Spike. They had already pre-bought it, and they want it for their network. But they did let us do theatrical, which is great, and we did. We did we did 35 cities, I think.
And is that important to your process to have that theatrical release? Do you think that's a different audience than an audience that will seek out the film in other platforms?
I just love theaters. I'm just a theater guy. Like, I love coming into movie theaters and you're like, look at this. This is where movies should be seen. And it's weird because we make a lot of web shows and we're doing one with Spurlock now and you're like, this is awesome, but we're watching this on like just a little screen. So I just think for me, maybe it's an ego thing. I just wanted to play it for people in theaters, but it is a lot of work to do, to put on a screening for 200 people where you could put it out and 1 million people can see the trailer in a day. So it is a lot of work, but I think it's important. I think it's important because I don't think the theater is dead. I think it's a great event and experience that people want to go to.
I think you have to decide what you want for your film, and it's a hard question to be faced with when you're just trying to make your movie. But you do have to make a decision, I think, at some point. And with 65 Red Roses, we didn't understand what a theatrical was, and we were just terrified of it because we have no money.
Right.
Like, how are we going to put money into this movie right now? But what the irony of it is that we were selling out screenings in Toronto and Vancouver at such a rapid pace. Like, we won the audience awards in Toronto and in Vancouver, and then we went and did another 5 screenings in this theater. And so in a lot of ways now I'm thinking, okay, we probably could have done a limited theatrical, but we didn't really understand what that was at the time, and we didn't know how to approach supporters, and we didn't know what Mongrel was. Like, Mongrel is like now supporting Tempest, but I didn't even know what a distributor was. Like, I just thought this is going to broadcast, and that's kind of it. And then with Blood Relative, Blood Brother was doing the whole gamut, and I think I just went, I think this is the other thing is with Blood Relative, there was a whole social awareness campaign that could have been tacked on with that film, and if I had put in another year on that movie and really done, gone after, new media and like done the website attached to social, and I delayed the release of the film by another year, could have been a different story. But like honestly, I just, and this is maybe one of the problems of when you're on your own and you're working with a very small team, is that it was like, we got to move on.
Yeah,
we got to move on.
Yeah.
And for that film, we were really happy it broadcast. It had a great release within Canada, and it aired on CTS in Ontario. And as the broadcast within Canada, I was very happy about it. And I brought the subjects in for the screenings, and so it really was a celebration. I was very happy with what happened with that film.
Yeah.
But there was potential. It just again, you have to make a decision. Is this what I want to do? Do I want to go after funding now for
spend the next year of my life?
Yeah. Do I want to do that? Yeah.
Well, I have a million other questions I could ask, but I did want to give the audience a chance to. Someone's thrown her hand up right away, so please feel free to ask these guys questions.
So this one, is it working?
Yeah. No, we can hear you. Yeah, it was on.
It's for you, Brent. I know that you are doing, documentary features, and you're also doing a lot of corporate videos. And then with this new web Spurlock show, I watched the one on cheese.
Yeah.
It's just for web, the Spurlock show?
It's with Maker.
It's Maker, right?
Maker's
Sorry, Disney.
It's Disney's new digital initiative. So I don't actually know the deal after it goes. They might. I think Spurlock's team owns it, and then they're gonna. I think it does go to TV and stuff.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
So this question is kind of inspired by the topic of cheese specifically.
Okay.
Dairy farmers, how so many people are kind of against milk, and they're like, this is a terrible product.
Yeah.
And also because this summer I was in a Swiss Alp dairy, which makes like 1 vat of cheese a day instead of 200 million or whatever it was in the video. 12,000. I can't remember. A ridiculous amount of cheese.
This is a crazy show.
Okay, what's the
I'm
question?
wondering where the money is coming from to make those shows, and if you are allowed to be critical of those things that you are focusing on the episodes, because there wasn't a critique of cheese in the video. It was very much like, this is the best product ever. And I'm just wondering if you are allowed
maybe
to have
Brent
that.
can tell us a little bit about what that show's about.
I think because I think
and then his lawyer is going to speak from
and she's gonna No, I think the real question is a little if it's branded content versus non-branded content, and it gets tricky with documentaries, and this is why I love Spurlock so much. Is like he did a whole documentary on products and brands. It's incredible. So that show particularly that just came out with Maker. Some of the episodes are branded and they've paid money, and some aren't. But the one thing as a filmmaker which I love that I'm really creating is I'm gonna do whatever I want. That's the only thing I care about. And that's what's happening with this show. Is like, you might let us in, you might have your brand all over it, but I'm gonna tell the exact story I want about cheese. I'm gonna tell everything there's 800 pounds of salt and 3,000 pounds, every 3,000 pounds of cheese with that company. And they're great. And Tillamook is an amazing company. And I think it does differ. And this, we just sort of were talking about, what are documentaries? Is Brony Tale even really a doc? It's kind of like this weird comedy thing. And I think that's where money can come from. There's a business there. It's really cool to bring that into this sort of panel, because that's where a lot of money can come from too, from brands. And I think as long as you're being honest and truthful about it, then let brands get in. But that's just my opinion on it. I think that's Spurlock's opinion with the show.
And do you think there's a change in the marketplace, that there's more pressure on filmmakers to be entertaining in their approach to documentary? I mean, documentary maybe for a lot of people carries this weight of having to be serious and having to be talking heads, whereas I found with both your films, you guys were using animation. You were, your camera work is extremely visual and very different from just sort of talking heads.
Totally, I think that's it. I don't know if I even signed up to make docs in general. I think I signed up to make real entertainment, real life stories, which is what I want to do. And it's been great. And you kind of get put into what a doc should be. Yeah. And I remember seeing, this is why I wanted to work with them. I remember I was in grade 11 and I saw Super Size Me in a theater, and I went, finally there's a movie out, and it's a documentary, and I don't feel horrible about myself. Like, this guy went through a funny journey, and he gets at his subjects.
He did it for you.
He did it, yeah. He's like, but exactly. But he gets at subjects that, obesity in America is a major subject, but he does it in a really cool, quirky way, and I really liked it. And I thought, I'm gonna do this for my life. I want to make these because this is this guy.
Oh, and now you're working with them. That is so nice.
That's great. Yeah.
It's kind of nice full circle.
Yeah.
So. And what about you? Do you find that that's those are the notes you're getting now? Like, can we be? I mean, obviously, with your 2 earlier films, that subject matter was very heavy. There wasn't, and yet you found light in it. You know, I found myself laughing and through the tears, and so do you feel that pressure from people to be more entertaining, sort of thing?
I don't think you feel like you need to. I think I agree with Brent. It's you're making a film. You're trying to make a really, like, for me, I approach it just as I would with a narrative, and that's from the beginning all the way until the marketing. Like, I don't sort of think that it's a limit like that I have, as since it's a documentary that people won't watch it. But I think that, you know, for me, having worked with broadcasters, you're cutting for television, and cutting for television is different than cutting for film.
Yeah.
And
that's a good point.
Yeah, and so I think what happened with 65 and with Blood Relative is I was cutting for TV, and then I would cut it the lengthwise for a feature, and then, you know, get broadcaster approval on that. And I was really, really fortunate that both CBC and Knowledge, you know, supported the edit. You know, with Blood Relative, my husband was the editor, Mark Ratzlaff. Like, you know, like it was the two of us making the whole movie, and with the broadcaster. And then with Tempest, it's like this is the first time I've gotten the chance to really approach it from the beginning as a feature. And that's been really
Mark cutting
exciting.
that one too?
Yeah, Mark's cutting that one too. You should marry the people that you want to work with.
Yeah.
That
Marry
is
your
the
editor,
message
everybody.
that I'm sending you all. And also, I mean, the cinematographer on Tempest, Lindsay George, we went to film school together. You know, like, so everybody who I'm working with are friends. And so they believe in the project, they're willing to invest in the project. But yeah, so this is the first time that I've been able to really think about it theatrical, you know, and yeah, and really think about the way I want to tell the story as a feature, which is, you know, really fun.
If you want to talk about cheese later, I'll be around. We can talk. Like, break it all down.
There's a question in the front row here. He's gonna wait for the mic.
Question to Brent. You mentioned something briefly about Howard Stern and the Bronies. Can you expand on that?
Oh,
please?
sure. You guys know, everyone knows Howard Stern, and he just went
Can you
off.
just imagine? I mean, the question kind of answers
Yeah,
itself,
yeah.
doesn't it?
Howard Stern, he's just the like, yeah. Oh, he never talked about the film. He talked about the Brony community and how he just thought they were all perverts, basically. But the Bronies, like, in the media have gotten it really hard. It's difficult. It's like, it's a bit of a shift in pop culture. You got a whole bunch of men liking a girl show. So, you know, you're going to get a lashback. And they know it, and they knew it was coming, and it did. It got, you know, a lot. Oh, yeah, his comment was way before. It was like almost a year and a half before. Yeah. And he's had Bronies on his show. Like, it's pretty funny, actually. They all laugh about it now. It's great.
Or I can just add, she's asking about crowdfunding, which was a question I haven't gotten to yet. And I thought it was great. Have $45,000 for Tempest Storm. Can you speak to maybe what the success of that was attributed to, do you think?
Yeah, so I was...
Besides all your hard work.
I was very fortunate to moderate a panel at VIFF Industry in 2012 with the directors behind Indie Game, Lizanne Figeaud and Jamie, and James, sorry. And what I learned from that whole encounter was it just opened up all these possibilities through crowdfunding, and I'd really recommend checking it out. I believe it's on Vimeo. But they had so much great advice. And so what we did was we said, the reason we're doing this crowdfunding campaign is to raise money for development and start production on this film and prove to other people that there is an audience for this film. And second, to start doing audience engagement, like right from the beginning. So actually start branding the whole film right when we're in the development stage. Nice. and picking like a theme and kind of look for the film. And so with just like briefly touching on like some of the strategies, like if for anyone who's done Kickstarter, you know, it's all or nothing. And that was the stressful part of it. And so what we did was we launched
all or nothing, meaning if you don't raise your target amount, you don't
get anything. So we timed the film. Our Kickstarter launched on the day that we were selected to pitch at TIFF Pitch This, and it was also Canada's launch of Kickstarter, so it became Canadian in Canadian dollars. And so we used that. We hired a PR firm. We did press for the film. We treated it as if the film was already done. And we did engagement with the burlesque community, with all, it was a really good sort of way to sort of suss out who are the communities that are interested in this project. And, I'm very happy to say a lot of people that supported the project were just people who like documentary films. And we've stayed in touch with them. We did a YouTube channel, Tempest Storm Film, which has gotten like over 20K views, which is not bad for, for us. And, we've been doing media content, probably not as much as we could have been doing, but we've tried to keep different platforms, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. We're constantly updating everything.
It's so much work.
It's a ton of work, and so we basically acted as if the film was done from the beginning, and just continued on with trying to help build an audience. And then just quickly about the actual rewards, we just wanted to make sure that the rewards were as much digital downloads as possible, so that we wouldn't have to send stuff out. And so then the only other thing I would say about that, which was a lesson that we learned, was that when you do that, you have to really make sure your subject is also prepared for that. Because for us, usually I don't show a film to my subjects until it's completely done. And this was a scenario where you're starting to put out material really, really early. So it was an interesting, sort of experiment and being like, oh God, okay, so now, our subjects are seeing something that's not completed. But it's, so that's just one thing I would just warn people to just think it through.
And I know we're running out of time, so we're just going to wrap it up. Have you done a crowdfunding?
I've never done crowdfunding.
Right.
I'm not against it or anything. I just haven't done it. I think it's really cool. The one thing I would say about it is I'm always putting money into films. Like, it's like an Amazon where you accidentally get on. You're like, man, I just ordered a bunch of stuff. Like, I find whenever I go on to Kickstarter. And I just like the stories behind movies. I like that. This is my mom's story, and she wants to tell it, and we need to raise money to do it. Like, a distributor doesn't care about that. Nobody cares about that, but people do.
Yeah.
And that's really cool. I'm more interested in the story of making that movie than I am in actually seeing the movie a lot of the time. So yeah, I think it's probably one day I'll do it.
That's great. Well, I just want to thank our panelists so much for participating. Yeah. That was just, I have a million other questions I could ask you, but it was really, congratulations to both of you on your films, and can't wait to see Chris Farley and can't wait to see Tempest Storm. So thank you, and thanks to VIFF for holding this panel.
Thanks,
yeah,
guys.
thanks to VIFF.
And Rogers, the sponsor. Oh yeah, Nimisha's just going to say one quick thing about.
Yeah, sorry, I'm on the board for DOC. It's an incredible organization for new members. It's 25% off just for all of you. If you're making a film, you're going to need insurance. You get insurance benefits. You're on a listserv. It connects you to everyone in the country. You can ask free advice. They get back to you right away. It's a really amazing resource. If you're not already a member, you really should be. So they're outside.
Documentary Organization of Canada, DOC.
The Documentary Organization of Canada, and their BC chapter is amazing. So really honestly, if you haven't checked it out, you should. They're right outside.